a book that began over 65,000 years ago. Before cities, before ships, before maps, there was a continent already alive with civilization, not written in metal or stone towers, but in stories, land, fire, and memory. This is the world of the first peoples of Australia, and it is one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth. But here is the question historians still struggle with. How did they survive so long in one of the harshest environments on the planet? Because this was not an empty land. It was a living network of nations, languages, and trade routes stretching across deserts, coasts, and forests. And everything was governed by something deeper than law, something known as dreaming, a system that explained creation, morality, land, and identity all at once, something that would change everything forever. The year is 1788. On the horizon, ships appear. Not one, not two, but an entire fleet, the First Fleet. Their destination? A land that Europe barely understood. A place later named Australia. Inside those ships were soldiers, officers, and prisoners. Because this was not a voyage of discovery, it was a relocation, a solution to overcrowded British prisons. But for the people already living here, it was something else entirely, a collision of worlds. At first, there is confusion, then fear, then conflict. Land that had been lived on for tens of thousands of years was suddenly declared owned. But ownership meant nothing to those who had no concept of it. And so began one of the most complex and painful chapters in history. As settlements expanded, so did tension, and tension turned into violence. This period would later be called the Frontier Wars. But unlike traditional wars, there were no clear battlefields, no uniforms, no written declarations, just survival. And slowly, over decades, the continent began to change. Forests cleared, rivers redirected, new diseases spread, entire communities were displaced. But amid this darkness, something unexpected was forming. A new society was beginning to rise from the chaos, and it would be driven not by soldiers, but by something far more powerful. Then, in the mid-1800s, everything shifts again. Gold is discovered, and suddenly Australia is no longer just a penal colony. It becomes a magnet. People arrive from China, Europe, America, everyone chasing fortune. Rivers of humanity flood into mining towns. Entire cities appear almost overnight. Law breaks down in some regions. Crime rises. Fortunes are made in days and lost in minutes. And then comes a moment that defines resistance. The Eureka Stockade. Miners rebel against authority, demanding rights and fairness. It is crushed, but it plants a seed of democracy. Because something important is happening beneath the surface. A colony is learning how to become a nation. But transformation always has a cost, and the cost here is measured in land, identity, and memory. By 1901, the impossible happens. The separate colonies unite, and the modern nation is born. A federation is formed. Australia is no longer just a collection of settlements. It is now a country. But identity is still fragile. Who is this nation? What does it stand for? And most importantly, who does it include? Because even as progress continues, deep wounds remain unresolved. But the world is about to change again. And this time, it is global. In 1915, young Australian soldiers land at Gallipoli. They are far from home, facing brutal terrain and fierce resistance. Many do not return. And yet, something unexpected happens. Defeat becomes identity. The idea of courage, sacrifice, and mateship becomes deeply tied to national character. Then comes World War II, and this time the threat reaches Australian soil itself. Air raids hit northern cities. Suddenly, the war is not overseas anymore. It is real, it is close, it is personal. And through these global conflicts, a nation begins to see itself differently, stronger, more independent. But history is never just about war. It is also about people. And here, another story continues in silence, one that is painful and long ignored. While Australia modernizes, another story unfolds in the background, one of displacement, separation, and loss. Australian children are taken from families under government policies that would later be deeply questioned and criticized. These events would become known as the stolen generations. It is not a story of battlefields, but of homes and identity, and the effects echo across generations. This is not ancient history. This is recent memory, and it forces the nation to ask, what does reconciliation truly mean? Today, Australia stands as one of the most developed and multicultural nations in the world. Cities rise with global architecture. Immigration shapes culture, food, language, and identity. Technology connects it to the world faster than ever before. But beneath the modern skyline, the past is still present. Ancient cultures still live. Stories still survive, and history is still being written. Because Australia is not just a country, it is a layered timeline, a place where 65,000 years of human story still breathe under modern streets. So when you look at Australia today, don't just see cities, don't just see beaches, don't just see a modern nation, see something much bigger. See an ancient world that survived unimaginable time, a colonial system that reshaped everything, and a modern society still trying to understand its true identity. Because the story of Australia is not finished. It is still unfolding right now.